Hello, this is Deborah Anderson, the Black Woman Animator, coming back to you with another video. In this video, I have Chuck Patton. Welcome. I will have you do a quick introduction of yourself.
Okay, I'll make it very quick. I'm good. No, that's awful. I never use those words.
I'm good.
I'm exceptional. So I'm Chuck Patton. I'm a veteran animation director of the business, as well as a veteran comic book illustrator from the comic industry. I have been doing this quite a bit. I used to say, and people would say, "Well, say it this way, Chuck. I'm Emmy Award winning Chuck Patton." So that's what I tell you everything. It's been a while since I had the Emmy, but we hang out. Thank you for having me on, and looking forward to spending this time with everybody and you.
Yes. So I'm excited about this first question because initially when I was put in contact with you, I did not know this, but in doing my research, I found out. So the question is, where are you from?
Well, I'm from the Midwest, as you can see. I'm from Detroit. I grew born and raised. Yes, I heard. All right. See, I love when they say this part because I go, no, I'm from Detroit.
Right.
I grew up less than 3 miles from the Fisher Building, which I think is still there. I still have family there. Our house is gone, but the neighborhood is still there. So I am born and raised Detroit, not far from Motown, the actual Motown either. That's me. I wear the Detroit hat out of represent because my heart is always with Detroit, even though I really don't care about the teams. My older brothers and brothers, they're nuts about either the Lions or the Tigers. I don't care. I just love Detroit. So
I try to I rep Detroit all the time because I feel like we need to be like the people from New York City and people from Texas where they're always repping, because I feel like people from Detroit don't be repping as much. And so anytime I see somebody with a Detroit hat, I'm like,
oh yeah.
I'm like, what up though? And I'm like, and then I had one person who was like, nah, I'm not from Detroit. I'm like, okay, I tried.
No, I hear you. No, I've lived in Boston, lived in New York. So I skipped every place in between, but you meet everybody, and been to Texas that my older brother lives in now. And everybody has their own version of machismo. I had a friend from the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx. I'm like, dude, you don't know nothing unless you walk the streets of Motown. Okay. Or you can, you can be whatever you are, but hey, we ain't daffodils. We ain't soft. Detroit's strong. We have been there. We've always been there. We have not given up. And that's why I'm proud of the city. Always have been. I may not go back to live because, as we talked earlier, it's cold there.
I don't need help being cold.
Cold. Yeah, I had enough of the winters. I grew up 30 years there. I left before my 30th birthday. So, but that was long enough.
So I grew up on Casual and Mac. So I was like,
oh wow, really?
Detroit, and then Grosse Pointe. So I was like, I'm in Detroit.
Okay, I got you. I met Spike Lee once, and he was going on about Brooklyn. I went, yeah, but I'm Detroit. So you can go about Brooklyn. I know about your dad's family and all that, but I got music in my family. My grandmother was a close friend to Aretha Franklin's father.
Nice.
So that's the queen of soul. There is no other royalty that can trump that. So yeah, you got jazz, but we had soul music, man. We had gospel and soul music in the house. So hey,
And until I convert to a California license plate, I got my Louisiana personalized license plate that said Detroit.
Oh, that's sweet.
If you see me riding down the street, that's me.
Awesome. You'll get used to it. You know what? Because I know you haven't been here long enough, but you're probably going to go through the same thing I did, where somewhere in here, you're going to be driving down the street. It's going to be one of those perfect California days. I'm not going to tell you when. It's going to happen in your experience. And you're going to say, I'm here. This is home. And that's what happened to me. Where there was a point, I had a friend who had who's since long passed away, real sweetheart. He had to take off overseas for business, so he asked me to look out for his car. His car was his baby. He had I can't remember the year, so it had to be like 80 something. Convertible Mustang.
Mm.
It was the car, and I remember had the hood down. I never had a convertible before, and I was driving through Beverly Hills because I was curious what Beverly Hills was all about. After watching Beverly Hills Hillbillies and shit for years, I was like, "Is it really that?" And I remember driving down the street, and I looked up, and it's the palm trees and the whole thing. And went, "It's a California day," and I'm here, and I'm in a car with the top down, you know. And then the old song hit me. I'm driving in the what was it? Oh, I can't think of it now. Sun rooftop, digging the scene with the gangster lean.
Yeah.
Because I'm R&B, so that's my thing. So I was hearing that, and I'm like, yeah, this is home.
Yeah.
And I haven't felt that way since I had left Detroit. So
yeah, we love it. So how was it growing up? Let's go into that.
How was it growing up? Growing up in Detroit?
Yes.
Oh, geez. Well, this is another time period, my dear. It's like, I put it this way. I have a beloved niece who was a toddler at the time that was probably very pivotal for a lot of us who grew up in the 60s, the Detroit riot. And we talk about it occasionally because she's like, "Uncle, I remember you holding me," but and I had to be, I'm 10 years older than she is. So I was put in charge of her and my younger siblings while our block was on fire.
Yeah.
And in the middle of that, it was like out of a movie. I clearly have this visual in my head of, it was like, I remember looking at my brother and going, "It's just like it is on TV," because we had fire engines coming in. And because it was the riots, we had National Guardsmen coming in on Jeeps with machine guns on top. Like it's a damn war movie. And we kids were like, "Oh, this is awesome." Not realizing that one of those bullets is going to kill you. And it impressed on our mind that we lived through that. We saw that. We saw this chaos come out of this place that was home. We saw it not recover. We got through it. We went through a really nasty recession when the 80s came. It was, Detroit growing up as a child, to me, always felt magical. Magical in a way that it's not magical the way it is out here in LA, where it's, sunshine and beaches and the whole thing. But it was, you felt familiar. There are areas that my parents would go every week, was like Hamtramck. We would go there, and into the Polish restaurants and get, pierogies and bread and stuff. And knowing we had to get across the tracks before 5 o'clock because the trains would come in and basically lock you in for a half hour as they're bringing steel in so you can make cars, because you knew either your parents were working in the factories or you knew somebody was working in the factories, and you heard the factories, you smelled the factories, or you drive a certain block and you smell Stroh's beer, or you saw your older siblings getting dressed up because they're running to the Belle Isle because the Boblo is going to take off. All these name drops. Yeah, that was your Boblo boat. That was, first time I got on the Boblo boat, I finally felt like, yeah, I'm an adult. I'm maybe 14. Yeah, because I've heard of so many great parties, and I wasn't at that kind of party, but I was like, oh, I'm on the Boblo. So, but all those memories were beautiful. And then after 67, around 68, childhood's in, when we got to see how things were. And my high school at the time, I have siblings who went to Cass Tech, which I really wished I went. I went to Detroit Northern, which was a tougher school, was not art oriented, but it was a school of hard knocks. And so we were talking earlier off camera about being, well, we didn't say the word, but it's all being sensitive. Being what has made us more of introverts. And I was that kind of a kid, but it wasn't like it did, to me, it sharpened up my perception, my observations by being sensitive, being more withdrawn, because people are thinking you're locked down. It goes, oh no, we got cameras 365, looking at everything, analyzing everything, not only for threat assessment, but also building up this visual library of experiences and things, especially as an artist, because when someone said draw a car, I looked at that car. If they say draw a tree, I'm not only asking what kind of tree, but how high it is, how many barks is it, how much detail should be in there, where does the squirrel come out, does it have a squirrel, does it have a telephone post attached to it, because there were trees that had that back then. All these details that fed into our visual library, visual catalog, that was I knew somewhere on the line, I had no idea how it was going to pay off. I just knew as a creative person, that's what kept me, that's what built up my artistic muscle, my artistic self. That's really less the muscle, but because I didn't think about it then, but my being an artist, I knew when I looked at something, I could see 4 or 5 different shades, or even several, even more than that, shades of whatever, color, character, all that. While everyone else was just seeing the surface, I was looking beneath. And that was exciting to me, especially when I heard it from other artists or older artists, when they say that, and it was like finding out, oh my God, I found the secret key. They're talking my language. Oh shit, and that was exciting. And I couldn't, or I tried to explain to my parents, and they're looking at me like, I don't know what you're talking about, But that was part of the bittersweet of Detroit, was that growing up, it was that magical feeling of this is home, and then seeing it shook to the very foundation of almost coming apart, and then seeing it come together as best it could, but also that it would never be the same. And then having to realize the world is a lot harder and harsher than you thought, that you need to, I think that was around then, when I was a teenager, that I realized that I was not going to live there forever. I needed to get out. I needed to see the world. Whatever the world was. The world had to be, there was another world outside Detroit that I've heard of that I needed to see as an artist. I didn't know if I was going to make it as an artist. I didn't know if even I was going to be allowed to be an artist. That was a really weird thing to have back then, was to feel, would they even allow me to be an artist? Because it was some hoops we had to jump through that most kids don't go through now. We have our schools now. Back then, you didn't have our schools, or the kind of art schools that was readily available. And I don't mean just by color, but just by availability.
Right.
If there were any real art schools, there was, either at a distance, or they had requirements that, because we were Detroit Public School, we weren't aware of those requirements, certain type of drawing abilities, certain type of whatever. My older brothers got out of Cass Tech much more information than I actually got. And I'm the only one that became a professional artist. That made me more self-taught, while my two brothers actually got to learn what perspective was from a classroom, and color values from a classroom, and actual application. Now, not to say that we were thrown completely under the bus where I was, but it just made it a little harder. I was actually, to my mind, especially now looking back, very blessed that I met certain people who had a certain amount of talent, and they were in the place I needed them to be. And they weren't at these high levels, but they were where I needed to go, and they educated me and told me about portfolios and told me what things, or even the most important thing, they encouraged me to do things where I wasn't sure, and they would say, no, you should do that. You should try that. I tried once, I remember doing an art contest where everyone wanted this sort of, it was big and trying to teach us our Black pride. And because I was more, as I realized later, of a storyteller, I wanted to tell it. And comics was always my life too. That was my Bible. Comic books have always been my life. That I wanted to do something more illustrative, a lot more. And this is key, because to this day, that was my biggest regret, that I never had true illustration instruction. In other words, I could like and love what I saw in magazines and collected them, but I never found out how those guys did it, other than just licked and stole it. Or stole it, and or as we used to call it, swipe it, that kind of thing. But that was how you learn. And I remember doing this poster that was intense, violent. It was like a Black exploitation version of Dali. It was. I remember the culmination of the drawing was a man being impaled by a giant hypodermic because of drugs, and the school wanted to ban it. And my art teacher was this little guy, and I can't remember his name. I'm sure my little sister would. That was the fun part too, is that as we moved, because we had such a big family, I had sisters older than me who were at Detroit Northern. So when they left and moved on, they would tell me, the teachers, who to avoid and who to look out for. So I did that for my younger siblings. They still remember. Some people have gone. But anyway, this teacher, probably for the first time ever, stood up and went, no, this young man has shown us something. He showed basically balls. He showed what he how he sees it. He wasn't giving you some nice little political statement or something that was going to be progressive. He was telling you how he saw it.
Right.
That laws were threatening and frightening and scary, and the more we try to ignore it, the more it's in our faces everywhere. And the way he did it was the way he interpreted it. Again, he didn't want to do it. He did it in comic book style. And scary enough, he outdrew everybody in here. So you're not banning this. I'm putting this up front. It was the first time I ever won anything. It was I won first prize. A bank actually purchased it. To this day, I have no idea where the hell it is, because I probably did in black and white. Now, my memory says I did in black and white, but I was in a daze because I remember the teacher giving me, this was big money back then, $50. And I went, what's this for? He's like, you won first prize, and the bank bought it. Meant they were putting it on their walls. And I never seen it on the walls. It was, I don't even know where it was, but it had to be, I want to say it was maybe maybe in East Detroit. Wherever it was someplace where I couldn't get to. And folks couldn't drive me to see it. They were just shocked that, all of a sudden we got an artist now, he's getting money. And because my folks, actually my mom wanted me to be a writer. She wanted me to be a journalist. So I had focused a lot.
Or Central Michigan? Is that what you majored in at Central Michigan? Or?
Yeah, when I majored at Central Michigan. I went to Central Michigan because honestly, I couldn't get into U of M. I didn't have the grades. My older brother made it. Lucky him. But I didn't have the grades. I just was too short at MSU. That was the only place I wanted to go to. I didn't think of going to Eastern. Nobody wanted to go to Eastern because everybody I knew went to Eastern. And by that time, I had this real drive in my head to get an experience that I would never get anywhere else. I wanted to integrate. I mean, I can put it in words now, but I wanted to see more than what my world was showing me. And I knew I had to be out there. I had to know what it was, which meant I was going to be alone. But I was at a point in my life where it's like, well, yeah, this ambition, this drive, this talent wants to learn. I never thought I was better. I mean, even though winning that contest still never made me feel like I was the best. It said that it did say truth that I did have a talent that I needed to grow, but it didn't say, oh, I'm going to go out there and win contests. Not at all. No. I mean, this teacher, bless him for doing that, because if he didn't, I probably would have stayed in Detroit and worked in a factory and made a life, and who knows? Yeah. Maybe I would have stayed as an Actually, I took on journalism because, as Mom said, that's a job. That's going to give you real money. We don't know about this art stuff, but journalism, she respected television. She respected the television news. I was a voracious reader. And so it's like, that makes sense. And I said that as, okay, I can fall back on that. But in my secret heart of hearts, I'm going to be an artist. I don't know how, I don't know where. I know I got to get out of here. And I also know I needed more practice with my writing. And Central Michigan at the time was known as a journalism school. And I actually won an award on that. So that's where I used that grant that I won, and on a journalism award, I got like second prize for a story. And I used that to go to Central Michigan, which was like 200 some odd miles away. And that was like, okay, far enough. That's a good start. If I can handle this.
Like, hey, is that where up north is? Like when my classmates
I'm from the old-fashioned way. You know how Michigan is. That's the palm, right? Central Michigan is, let's see if I can do it again. Central Michigan, this is Detroit. So Central Michigan was literally there. So we're halfway between that and then going into the upper part of Michigan and then the Upper Peninsula, which is the whole,
Like, other than Lansing and maybe Kalamazoo, I never really left Southeast Michigan. So.
Oh, you know what? I'm grateful that I did, because growing up, Detroit streets, urban, blah, 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 graffiti, or in this case, after the riots, burned down buildings, empty parking lots where a giant building was, no money, people, the white flight was happening where all the businesses were leaving. And then you go out there and it's like farm country. Golden hills, little communities, I want to say there was not Solvang. Solvang's in California. There was this little place like Solvang, and I can't remember the name of it now, but it's like, it was like Dutch community kind of thing. And I'd never seen that before. Proverbial, they had their Huguenots or wherever they were, but they had the wagons on the street and stuff. And I was like, ooh, and Central Michigan literally was this college town in the middle of farm country. So you got a variety of people that showed up there, and all of them not necessarily for just journalism, but majority were. And that was my United Nations moment,
Yeah.
And that's where I kind of found out if I was going to become who I was going to be. That was the place to start. It would have been a lot easier if I was at U of M because they had an art program that was amazing. It would have been better if I even stayed in Detroit and went to the Center of Creative Arts.
Yeah.
I was tempted strongly because my folks were scared about me leaving. My mom was like, actually she passed before I even got out of high school. But her biggest fear was, you're going to go out there in the world and die. Like, Mom, people do that, And I watch too much television. Well, okay, I'll go out and die, But I remember she also put a huge fear of me of New York City because we see New York City in movies, and it's like that place will kill you. There's junkies everywhere, And so I conquered that later, but still, I had it. And of course, the Stevie Wonder song didn't help either. You living for the city just always kept me. Oh man, I'm gonna die,
And regarding that song, I didn't even realize. So, growing up in Metro Detroit, living for the city is the at least when I grew up was the couple song, like the Electric Slide song. And then I left, and I was like, y'all don't play Stevie Wonder like for this song. Like, oh, okay, yes.
Well, I always feel like because Stevie was and still is like an idol for me, and I made it a point when I was in Central Michigan because I had I was surrounded by white, so I had white roommates, white friends, and whatever, and I always made a point to have a Stevie Wonder album somewhere. Musical goddamn genius. Okay, we're gonna listen to this, and a lot of them, not one of them ever complained. Oh yeah, Stevie Wonder. Yeah. So I never saw that. No one had it.
Right.
I had a friend who was really musically. I learned a lot from my friends. Again, diversity about rock and all that. As I brought R&B to them and soul and some jazz. Some of them brought more to me with jazz and other things, and so I was grateful. I always thought it was the gutsiest, scariest decision ever made, but I would bless it because it set me on my path.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even an artist yet. I was still pretending to be a journalist. So
can you talk about your relationship with art, comic books, and animation in your childhood?
Oh God, yeah. And please stop me because I can't go on because you're making me go back way farther than the cobwebs, but it's all coming out, Honestly, comics, that's the irony with comics. Comics has been, for me, I learned to read on comics.
Okay.
Mom put me in the lap and she used to read me whatever is in the comic because she was big in comics. She loved comics.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, my mom was, and I should clarify this too. I was fortunate to be in two families. I had my natural family who lived next door, where my mother was, and my natural father, who unfortunately passed away when I was a kid. And then I had my foster family, who was basically like my guardians, because we had such a large family. My mom, they were really my godparents, and then they eventually adopted me. So when I talk about mom, I have to clarify that 99% I'm talking about my foster mom.
Okay.
Not that I didn't love either one, but my foster mom was the one who I would say ingrained in me who I was as an artist, and every creative thing I blame her on, because she would, as I got older, she would complain about the comics, but I kept thinking, but Mom, some of these are yours, These are, it was not unusual. My foster sisters and I would go to. There was no comic book shops then. You had to buy them at a pharmacy, and we had a place called Charlie the Pencil Man. And Charlie the Pencil Man, which was the name of the shop, was a pharmacy, smoke. It was one of those places you can get food there, and they had the spinner rack. And we would go, and we did not buy 3 comics. We did not buy 6 comics. I remember clearly it would be a minimum of 10. And it ranged from everything from mom read sci-fi, which was hilarious, sci-fi and romance. My sisters were into the romance and funny, and of course, Mr. Superhero. And also the sci-fi, and also, I mean, I remember reading the romance books as a young guy because I hear my sister talking about dates and stuff, and looking at them going, "Oh, that's what they do. Okay, so this is what kissing is. Got it." You know. And I would go off and draw it, and they'll come, "What are you drawing?" I'm hiding it, you know, because I'm drawing. I'm kissing because I was a typical boy. I ain't let no girl kiss me, but I'm drawing this. You know? Right. So comics were my life. So, I mean, it was not unusual that I would be in the living room and I would literally have a circle of comics around me. And I was a mostly DC guy because it was really hard for some dumb reason to get Marvel. Marvel was popular in the hood. So it's like Marvel comics get snapped up really quick. And if they they usually order more Spider-Man, and they would order like Avengers. So I'm used to getting Spider-Man, used to getting Thor, used to getting Captain America. Other guys are really hard to get. And but the DC stuff, you can get that shit like it was crack, you know. So it was ironic because I mean, when I finally got to be a professional, DC is where I went. But yeah, and I knew it already. I mean, I knew all the characters and I had my favorites, etc. But comics was a huge influence to me. It made up for again that observation. I knew I'd never even thought about film. That's why it's kind of ironic that I'm now in animation. But what it did do though was it really built that muscle again of observation. I loved movies. I loved television. My visual library was huge. Where I would look at something and see, I'd be looking at details, whether it's a door. Why does a door work a certain way on one show and work a different way on another show? Telephones, cars, guns, things of that sort, and then try to draw it. Certain shapes really were interesting to me, so I would draw like certain type of pistols, and I knew a Colt 45 compared to a Remington. I knew the fast hammer. Also, we had these toys too, so they helped. You know, boys always had guns and crap, and things of that sort. And all that stuff was observational to me. And then you watch these old Hercules movies, and you got to see ancient people run around in miniskirts and kind of go back in your history books, go, yeah, they were damn near naked. Okay, so you started. So all that shit was like that. It always went from those visual things were the cues for me to go and look them up in the library, which was my second home. I loved our school library, and later I went to the Great Detroit Library, which I think is still standing. I haven't been there in a while, but I used to go there with my older brother, and that was Mecca. I would just pull out whatever illustrated books, and then eventually started going into less illustrated books and started reading books. So, but anyway, comics set all that up. When anybody says comics, if people who say comics stunted one's intelligence were idiots, because what it did do for me is stimulated. It made it open the door for me to venture into books. Not to say that it does that for everybody, but for me, it was what I was. So comics has always been my life, probably always will be. Even when I read them now, there are things I don't read, but I read the odd things, and I'm always amazed at independent work. I see the maturity and it's kind of interesting materials that I wished I had took the chance to doing when I was younger, but there was no market for it. And that's the thing I like, is that who cares about the market? I mean, honestly, it's expression is speaking now. Sure, you care about the market, but it's and that is I'm gonna segue for a bit. The comic market is sad right now. It has been for a long time, but I don't believe it's gonna go away. It's been too internal, or too not internal, but it still has a pull on us, still has power.
I feel like maybe this pandemic can give that pivot of you can't go to the comic con anymore. So how can you sustain yourself? How can you make money without to these in-person events? And so some people will rise to the top.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see about these virtual conventions, because regular conventions, as fun as they can be for some people, they're not fun for a lot. I actually have not enjoyed conventions in a long time. I started going to the smaller conventions, and I enjoy those more. But the big cons, like San Diego Con, I've long lost interest in going there. Not only because of the crowd situation, but just the activity of it, to me, isn't conducive to actually connecting with people. You got a bunch of people in a room and all of them are making a noise. It's like, you know, you're in a wall of sound, but you're not talking one-on-one. If you want to do that, you got to get the hell out of there. You know, if you want to see some book, you got to be careful because you can't stand in one place long unless you get ran over or you moved on to the next thing. And now you got Hollywood sticking their nose in it. And now it's like, ooh, more lights, more lights. And the books that actually got us here are being ignored. That's not interesting to me. So the big cons, and I have not gone to that many big cons, but the ones I've been to, I lost a lot of interest in. It's just harder. You find that you're not connecting as much as you're struggling to be seen. And I just think that's hard. You got this product, you got this material you want people to see. Then you're right. I think we have to find another way to do it. Yeah. And I think the pandemic
I play extrovert on TV, but like
But you know, the pandemic is a, you know, I had a friend say a long time ago about one day we'll learn to bless our tragedies. And I think in this respect, what she meant was these hard things will force us to evolve and find other ways to connect with people, to connect with ourselves. It doesn't mean it's going to kill us. It's going to help us get stronger. You know, we get past this crap. Because we can't get face to face, we're going to find a way to communicate. And we're doing it right now. And that's wonderful. That's the part that keeps hope in me. You know, we have to have hope. You know, if we don't have hope, then what's the point in doing any of this?
Right. So what is your favorite, what are your favorite Motown acts?
Oh, that's too easy. No. Because I just told you about the Queen of Soul. So, but I mean, I mean, I have to step back and go, remember, I'm talking to someone younger, you know, I'm coming through the old school.
I'm still from Detroit though. So like, it's so for me, like I consider myself blessed to grow up when I grew up, because I'm an 80s baby, 90s kid. So the combination of being from Detroit, I got the Motown because my father introduced me to a lot of that stuff. I got the gospel from my mom. And then because of Looney Tunes, I got the classical. And then in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the commercials were rock songs. So I didn't know who sung them, but I knew the rock songs. So I'm blessed.
Right.
Musically.
Well, I'm just gonna sound. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna come up with somebody like, oh, I didn't think of that. I mean, it's Temptations, Four Tops, dueling together always have been amazing because I got to work with Levi Stubbs years and years later, and I couldn't gush over him enough that, you know, Four Tops, man, you guys, you gave the Temps a ran. It was just 4 of you. It was 5 Temps. You guys made them run. You made them work hard, you know. Levi Stubbs, that boy, it was just those guys. Of course, the Supremes, and then the littler acts, or the more and less known acts, Martha and Vangelis. I mean, it was Motown. Smokey. How can we talk without talking about Smokey? I mean, like,
can you believe that he knew Aretha all that long? It was like at her funeral, like we never did a song together. Smokey, what are you thinking?
He was talking about that, and then he flips on you and give you even more stuff like, well, Sam Cooke liked it. Wait a minute, you were hanging out with Sam Cooke? It's like, damn, you know, these people were royalty. These were our gods in a lot of ways. They were our art gods, our rock gods, our you know, they were our specials who were inspirational to us, and who they are by their music, by the way they dressed, the influence they showed the world that we can be not only just as classy, but we could be. We are amazing. That we can be. We are amazing. And I always remember the special moment whenever we would look through the TV guide and go, Temptations are there, Sullivan. We're gonna be there. And we knew that they were gonna, shorten them up or speed up the song. Temps were out there dancing anyway. Didn't matter. And it didn't matter if Smokey and the Miracles was gonna be on. If they were black, we were gonna watch it and represent them. And just like we saw ourselves. And then the way they wore their hats, the way they wore their hair. So for me, all of Motown, I can't say all of Motown because in that period, but in the 60s, everybody came out of there. That was my favorite. Stevie, all that. Lesser acts, again, it's because of the cobwebs in the head. And that's all. I would just use that as my answer. 60 down, all of them work. They're all probably the Temps and Temptations are because they're like, my dad loved the Supremes. The Supremes are great, but Diana was always, she was always in front, especially when she became Diana Ross in the Supremes. Right. What I love about the Temptations that you had the Temptations, and whether it was David Ruffin in the lead or Dennis Edwards in the lead, they were still the Temptations. And even with the Four Tops, Levi Stubbs is the main voice, but you also had the Tops. They were still there, and it was, Duke and everyone else. I think my little sister knew one of them too, or a neighbor of one of them. But thing is, that was the, and to this day, still, if I'm down, I'll put on the whole Motown classics and just sing along. It just gets you right back there. Right. And listen to that shit forever. Some people go, I can listen to the Beatles. It goes, I can't listen to the Beatles for long anymore, but I can listen to the Motown, to the guys I mentioned all day long. And sometimes it's almost like an old friend shows up when you haven't listened to it in a while. And they'll put on, oh, Stevie, I'm there. I'm good. So
just as a segue, you listen to music when you're drawing. How does that help with your creative process?
Oh, I honestly, it is not to sound corny. It's the soundscape we need. It's the soundtrack in your mind, especially if you're, whether in comics or in animation. Saying soundtrack really hit it for me. Sometimes certain songs in my head that I would need for a fight scene or even a conversational scene. Sometimes, and that's for the work. Now for myself, it works another way of sort of like it keeps you in a rhythm. It's like if you were working out and you're keeping your rhythm going, the song would keep you there. It kind of gets you away from worrying about, it keeps the distractions. It'll keep you focused. And the focus is both a distraction. It's both a it's soundtrack, and that this scene needs that. So music is very important for that. When you feel more confident, and I say confidence because I know people who can't, I drew with the TV on for the same reason when I was growing up. I didn't have, this is before the cassettes became more affordable, or even going out to get LPs. I would use the television. And so I think in that respect, soundtracks became important because when they were talking, it sort of, again, act as a focus. Didn't make me feel so alone. Didn't make me feel so isolated with the dueling thoughts. Sometimes you get stuck and you start kind of putting yourself down. Or I can't do this. I can't work it out. And you needed a crutch. I needed a crutch to just power through. So music became that. But often sounds too, music. A show, voices, sometimes radio shows. I started getting into that later. I think in the 90s is when I rediscovered radio shows. And so, old radio stuff to listen to. And it gave me a hope, which I was really appreciative when I started getting into animation and started working with actors and voice work, because I worked with an old actor. I didn't work with him, but I heard him say it to other one, Ed Asner, who amazing man. And Ed was like joking to these guys. They're like, God, you're so good at voice. He goes, kids, I used to do radio. Damn, you had to go in there and radio with that Ed Asner voice. Because you had to go in there and radio and tell the story with no pictures. Right. Your voice. You had to tell them who you were, what you were. You had to do it in a way that the person listening, visualizing, no, that's a detective or the bad guy or the husband or the dope or whatever. And he had to do the voice. And that, of course, was like, well, that's voice acting in a lot of ways. That is the principles of it. And sure, it's going to also influence the drawing, but it has to also be internal. It has to come from
Mm-hmm.
And so I paid attention to that and started listening to old radio and going, yes, this shit is crazy dope. Some of it was, especially the horror shows, the ones that were really, really good and they hook you and you sit there and I can see why, because my dad used to tell me about this. He would talk about how, we get crazy about TV as kids. And like you said, Looney Tunes and all that. And he would talk about, listening to this thing on Red Skelton on the radio. I'm going, what? You can see Red Skelton on television. No, you had to see him. You had to hear him on the radio. I'm like, what? How does that work? Until you listen, you go, oh, yeah. Okay. It's a whole different world. That made a big influence on me as far as using sound.
Yeah.
To your question, whether it was music, whether it was, again, hearing voices. Nowadays, too, I listen to audiobooks for that reason, especially with a reader. They're really helpful. If it's a bad reader, then yes, bust. But
yeah, I listened to Harry Potter, and then I tried listening to Game of Thrones, and I was like, can we get the Harry Potter dude?
And sometimes they do. Sometimes they listen and they get the right reader, I follow a couple of good voice actors who are book readers on my Facebook page, and those guys can sell the Bible. You just they read the Bible and you're like, yeah, I'm with you, and you follow them just like you follow your favorite artists or your other favorite actors, and we're grateful. I'm grateful that we have that available to us as artists because that is working for us.
Yeah.
In our solitary space, when we're focused on the screen or on paper, if you're still old school, or canvas, and you need that inspiration, that insulation. That's another word. Insulate kind of keeps you in the zone.
Yeah.
Helps you focus. I'm strong on that. I don't know. There's moments when I cut it out when I have to deal with a problem, but it's usually a problem and I know what it is and I just want to get it out of the way. So I don't need the enabler. Usually when I put it on because I want to really get into what I'm doing and I want to feel it. But if it's something quick like that, I don't think about it. I don't turn it on. I just do it. But it's very little of that and more of the other. So.
So I'm gonna list some of the comic books and animations because I like to let people know what Black people have worked on that are some of our favorite things. So I'll list out for comic books: Creeper, The Flash, Green Lantern, The Brave and the Bold, Detective Comics, Justice League of America, among other comic books. You were a director on G.I. Joe. Let's say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Is it called Kulapari?
Kulapari.
Dreamwalker, amongst other things. Storyboard artist on Dinosaurs. We both worked on Batman: The Brave and the Bold. So that's what I was going to mention to you.
Okay.
You were there 2010 to 2011, and that's pretty much when I was at BlkWmnAnimator from 2010 to 2011. So my IMDb isn't as decked out because I personally put stuff on my IMDb, so I don't know. Because I didn't put everything on there, so I'm sure we worked on similar episodes. My first day at work was Angry Elves episode of Family Guy, but the first thing that was on TV was there was a transition. There's this alien, there was this thing in space that it was a transition shot, and I can show you the picture of it. But that was the first thing. The Batman: The Brave and the Bold was the first thing on TV.
Really?
Animation. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Now I gotta step back and I'm curious. How did you like that experience?
It was I remember sitting at my desk and being like, I did not waste 4 years of college getting a degree in animation luckily I did it in my 20s where I was working 12-hour days from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then Saturdays. But it was a great experience. I actually got to do a Batmobile for Family Guy.
Ooh, so you've been associated with superheroes. See, this is lovely to hear because there's some people out there want to go, well, women can't do this. And I don't mean just can't do animation, but you want them to do action adventure, they really don't do that. And here you are going, no, you walked in the door and you jumped on Batman: Brave and the Bold, which I would say right now, although I'm friends with James Tucker and I've worked on the comic book and stuff, still to me one of the best Batman shows ever done. Certainly on a DC level because initially it brought all the characters in, but you walked in the door and worked on it. as opposed to, oh, did they put you on Strawberry Shortcake or did they put you on this? No, you went, give me Batman. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, so I'll have to show you my demo reel, which has a couple things from that I worked on, and then from Batman, and then I'll have to show you. So, okay, of course, you know, with hard drives, you never know when they'll stop working. And I was just in the middle of like transferring files from one to the other. I work from Korea, but I kind of it's not working, and so I redid the Batmobile that I did for Family Guy, and I'll have to show you that.
Okay, no, I'd love to see it.
Because I'm sure you could see it and be like, a woman did that.
See, I'm trying to
car, so yeah.
When I think that way, personally, I'm excited. I love to see people break. I mean, look, you can't do what I've done, and also can't applaud anybody who walk in. And I always call myself a contrary agent. You know, you walk in. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had people go, "Oh, I heard your name. I did not know you were Black," and that has been a thrill for me. I didn't know. I mean, it was something I got from my parents and something I carried on professionally that I did not want. I mean, I don't even want to go into that story. Let's just say I had a slight misunderstanding with a very famous person where I had to tell him where I came from because he was accusing me of one thing and I had to give him an education of going, okay, I don't have everybody kissing my ass, but see what you got right here, why we're talking, because I earned that.
Right.
And I'm representing the people below me who went, Chuck's up there talking for us.
Yeah.
You to back down going, no, I see where you're coming from, brother. Because I just want to keep it real. You know, this is why I had to go, okay, you say you're from this place, well, I'm from here.
Right.
This is Detroit.
I mean, see me, I look 10, 15 years younger than I am, and I have a light voice. And so half of it is I'm an Anderson, and the other, I'm from Detroit, though. So you can't just talk to me any kind of way.
Yeah.
But I'm not as gutter as some of my family members. So
you know, and even then, it's like when I start cursing, I always tell everybody, okay, this is my foster dad coming out. Because if I start going motherfucker, that means I'm 3 inches from hitting you. And Pop had he had 25 different versions of the word motherfucker. So it depends how he used it. But when I go to motherfucker, you know, something head's gonna pop. It's time to throw fists.
That's your warning sign. Like, okay, everybody out there, you know, if you need to run away if he starts saying that.
That's like my motherfucker. That's not good, you know. My niece reminded me too. Sometimes he would get excited, and because he had babies around him a lot, so he tried to temper his version. So instead of saying "goddamn," he'd go "GD." Now I have not done that yet, but I remember catching myself in the middle of something about to go GD and went, "Oh no, Pop, gotta sit down. I can't let you come in here. This is me now. I can't. I love you. I missed your ass, but, you know, I got this. You know?
But yeah, a couple more things. You were storyboard artist for Scooby-Doo, Mystery Incorporated, The Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Hulk and the Agents of Smash, Stretch Armstrong and the Flex Fighters. You're art director for G.I. Joe and character designer for G.I. Joe and Our Friend Martin.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah.
You're a producer for Double Dragon.
I was going to interject and give you a little story on that one.
Oh, wait. I only had a couple more, so you can go for it. Go on. For Double Dragon and then character designer for Dennis the Menace. So
say the one because I talked over you. Go ahead and say that again.
So producer for Double Dragon and then character designer for Dennis the Menace. So
I forgot about that one.
Story time.
Story time. No, just a quick one because you know we don't want to keep walking over our grave. My friend Martin came at a time, and that was the only time where I was actually competing against myself. I don't know if anybody else has done it, but I'm going to brag and say I'm the only one I know of. I was competing against myself at the Emmys.
Oh, snap! For what things?
Well, that was nominated, and I was put in as art director. It was a real problematic show. Let's say that it was a problematic production. I wasn't proud of it. I will say it out loud. I wasn't proud of it, but I went back to help because it was my old alma mater of DIC that did the show, or DEEC as we called it. And but I wasn't happy with it. I didn't like the way it was. And then prior to all that, I got put on to Spawn. A friend of mine brought me on to work as a director on Spawn. And so Spawn was what we were nominated for. And because both shows were not primetime, well, they weren't Saturday morning, they weren't in the usual category, they were put into a special category being primetime animation. And so we were the only two that fit in the category. So I realized, oh shit, I'm up against myself. And then I'm sitting in the crowd going, please don't win. Please don't win. I don't want that one to win. I want the other one. And I clearly remember Spawn being called out and looking over and watching my boss, who was already on his feet thinking he won it. It was in the bag. It's Martin Luther King. Who's not going to give him a statue of Martin Luther King? I'm sitting there going, please, Martin, you know the show sucked. Spawn was a perfect, I mean, it was like Spawn was like we got through World War II, shot Hitler, came back with the flag. That was my kind of it was a show where everybody had busted ass on. It showed quality, and thank God the Academy saw the same thing. So when they called out Spawn, I looked at him standing there kind of, and we were like, and they were saying, please, you guys come to the stage. And we all running to the stage. And I'm like, this is the tits. This is badass. Look at this. I just beat myself. And I remember I had a mouthful of gum, and my friend Frank Parr, the director, went, you know you're chewing gum, right? And yeah, you know we're on camera, right? And I kind of slowed my chewing down because I'm nervous.
Yeah.
And I thought nobody saw it. And my older foster sister saw it and went, I saw you chewing gum on stage, because they gave like a quick little clip of it.
Yeah.
But that was why Martin is so special, because I was competing against myself. And I actually, the one that should have won. So I'm very proud of that. Sad for Martin, happy for my response.
Yeah. So, how was it to be able to work on Justice League of America, which you're most known for, but be able to work on it in our hometown? Like,
well, I wasn't in hometown.
Oh, you weren't?
No, go ahead and finish your question though. Yeah.
So do you? Well, no, you answer, because I don't know if the rest of the question applies.
This is another one of those we could take on forever, but my getting into comics is another one of those blessed moments where I got the job. Well, actually, my first comic book job was Brave and the Bold.
Okay.
Which I got to do the animated show later. But how I got it, I was in a workshop under Dick Giordano, who was the premier inker in comics, as well as at that time editor-in-chief at DC Comics. And Dick was known as one of the nicest guys in the business. And he was started this workshop to bring in new talent, and they're going to call it officially New Talent. And I was a part of that. And he was hard on me all the time, which I'm grateful for, because what he was doing was really trying to get me, realize you're going to be out there. So I want you to be able to take it. So I'm going to criticize everything you did. And he used to always say this thing that to this day I stole and use on my artists, was I would do something I was really proud of. And he'd go, Patton, you went out of your way to be boring. And I was like, I used to hate that. And I go, what do you mean? And he would show me. He goes, no, he's right. I should have did this. So this day I always hear Dick, and I'm saying it to my artists, and they're like, oh, I hate hearing that. I'm like, you're going to be better than me now. But so why I'm telling you that, because Dick made me feel like, not he didn't make me, but his criticism had me thinking I was the worst guy in the class. One day, and it used to be a thing where when you didn't cut it, he eventually will, some people drop out, some people will stay there, and he would have to take them aside and say, this isn't going to work. I don't want you to waste your time. Back in a year. He never said never come back. He would say come back in a year, 6 months. Some of those people, same people, went across town to Marvel and actually got jobs. So it wasn't like it is in the end of the world. It was just as he saw the standards, what he wanted to establish. He had no problem telling you. And then one day he grabbed me, and I went, oh God, here it comes. I'm going to be, and he'll walk you. We used to go, you go out to the left door. I'm going to my right, and I mean my right. You go out the left door, you're going out the building. You go out the right door, you're going to the inner office. I was so nervous, I didn't realize he was taking me through the right door. And I'm like, well, this is a different place. Hey, where are we going? And I'm too scared to ask him. He says, come on, Chuck, come on, follow me, come on. Because he stopped the class. And takes me to this office. And inside the office is Lynn Wein, Marv Wolfman, and George Perez. Marv Wolfman and George Perez were the creators of the new Teen Titans. Lean Ween was the creator of Swamp Thing. One of the writers of the business, or the two guys sitting there, and the artist of the business sitting there. And he goes, "Here he is. I leave him in your hands," and he leaves. And I'm like, "What the fuck?" and Lynn's like, "So Dick says you're the fastest guy in class." I go, "What?" Dick's never said that. Dick says you can do this. Dick says you can do that. I didn't know that. And he goes, "Well, what do you think of this artist?" And this person had was drawing Babe in the Boat. And I went, "Oh, he's great." He goes, "No, tell me what you really think." He goes, "Well, he uses a lot of photo reference. He doesn't like to draw his own. He traces a lot." He goes, "Yeah, he did. Yeah, you're right." He goes, "Yeah, he didn't draw in the book. The guy who drew it before was a lot better." Because I was a super fan. He was just enjoying it. Marvin, him, and also Marvin and George shook my hand and said, "Good having you." And that's when I'm going, "What do you mean having me?" So it hasn't dawned in my head I'm being interviewed. So I'm just running off about a little fanboy because I'm going to be kicked out anyway. So he goes, "Yeah, that guy, he died yesterday." And I'm like, "Oh, shit." And he goes, "Yeah, I really feel bad. But, we got a deadline. He's already late." True story. Dick says you're really fast. How fast can you draw these 11 pages? Look, you want me to pick up what he goes? "No, I want to have a whole fresh start." Dick said, "You're his best guy." And that struck me crazy because I never remember anybody saying I was their best person. Even when I won the awards, I never thought that. And he was like, "You're the best guy in our class. He's sending you." And we had went from 30 to 15. We were holding steady at 12 people in that class. So I knew that there were other people I thought he could have put in, but he grabbed me. And I knew, okay, this is my moment. So they gave me the book. I had to draw it. I had less than 2 weeks to draw 22 pages. I did it in 2 weeks. And after that, it was like, even though I made that deadline for them, they also said, this told us that this is the person we want to take over Justice League. That Justice League had been drawn by the tops in the business or the lows in the business, if you want to say that, meaning that this is a book that's been around so long, you only want to put a bet on it. I was the first that I knew of rookie being given the top book at that point. And I was ecstatic because Justice League was my favorite book. So here I was coming into comics as a fan, now becoming a professional, and they're like, "You're going to take over the book with all the flagship characters." Oh, shit, this is great. Now, the scary thing is that writing-wise, Jerry Conway, who was the writer, wanted to leave the book. So they were having a problem finding a regular writer. Everybody want to jump on the series because it's a tough series. You're drawing all the major characters, but all these other characters have their own books. And sometimes I remember with the Flash was in his series about to go to jail. So how can you have Flash go to jail in his book and then hang out with the Justice League there? So you see, there was a problem coming. So there was a lot of guys who were like, I don't want to try to figure that shit out. But here we got this young artist, So I'm going to flash forward. So I stayed on that for a year, holding the book up with multiple writers until Jerry decided to come back. But he wanted to come back and change the book. Now, by that time, I was living in New York, by the way. All this happened, me being into the new talent. I was living in New York. And like I said, a year of drawing JLA. Somewhere in there, I thought I fell in love. I had a buddy who lived in California. I came out to visit him, met a friend of his, thought I was in love. Came back, told Dick I'm moving to California. He was freaking out, like, nobody moves out of New York. What are you, crazy? This is where the comic book business is. You're gonna be alone, kid. And I'm like, but I'm in love. So I didn't listen to the old man, and to this day I kind of wished I did. Well, no, actually I'm glad I did, because literally 2 years after that, everybody from DC started moving to LA. But that's another story. That's the irony of the thing. So ironically, I'm still drawing JLA, but living here in LA. And Jerry decides to come back in the book, and then he and I are sent off and try to figure out what we want to do. So he told me, basically, because Titans was our most popular book, meaning younger superheroes, there was probably a good, why don't we do this with JLA too? And I won't go into all the reasons and all that, but that was the decision in the whole was, let's bring a whole new JLA. Let's try to shake up the book where it stands out a little more, but also kind of work with X-Men, because that's the other thing. We wouldn't have Titans if it weren't for X-Men. We weren't going to make it exactly like that, but we wanted that flavor. And so here I am now. I've only been maybe a year and a half in the biz, and still not confident. But here I am being given this opportunity to co-plot with one of my with one of my favorite writers, who was, I mean, Jerry was the guy who created a lot of the important things from Spider-Man. Right. So I mean, Jerry was big, and Jerry wanted to collaborate, and I'm like, ooh. So here we go. I remember him saying, well, you know, JLA, we just blew up they got the satellite. I don't like the satellite. They used to have a headquarters, used to be a cave. We want to make them more down to earth. And it just popped out of my mouth. I went, why don't you make them move to Detroit? And he goes, tell me why. And I goes, well, because Detroit's like this. And they told him about how the city has been struggling. And it always had, and I remember as a kid riding my bike that you see these factories and hope they opened up and a spaceship were like, right. This is my little imagination rolling. He loved it. He kept going, okay. And he's writing this stuff. Now, I didn't realize he really was inspired by it. And pretty soon, we basically created the Detroit JLA.
Nice. Where
they were going to downsize, take over this secret factory, bring in new superheroes, train them, and create and maintain the Justice League. Because they all quit. They all had split up because of the UN and all this crap. There was a part of me that was super stoked because of that. And another part of me going, what the hell do I know? What am I doing with this? Because I also had to tell Jerry, well, you got to do certain things about Detroit. And he would go, yeah. And wrote this Detroit River that was, you know, like it wasn't I forgot what he called it. Oh, he called it Lake Detroit. And I'm like, no, that's not a lake. It's a river. It's not a lake. It's big, it's wide, but it's a river. It's not a lake, but it was printed. And then the Detroit Free Press picked it up and I went, oh, man. Yeah, and that was strike one. That's why my time on the books quickly went down from there, because I felt like all the things I was trying to make it happen didn't come together. And I blamed myself, even though no one did, but I blamed myself. But I probably jumped ahead, but that's how getting JLA was important to me, and making it part of Detroit was important. And the rest is history.
So how and why did you make the transition from the comic book industry to the animation industry?
This is going to be easier than you think, this answer. As much as I love comics, the pay was terrible. The time, the effort you put in is not good. It's different if you're on a book and you become a fan favorite and all of a sudden you're doing X amount of books and, you know, you get a better page rate. It wasn't like I was ever ripped off, but I just was never going to get better things. I would ask, once I left JLA, and like I said, I wasn't happy when I left. And I was, Marv, God bless him, felt like I wasn't given a decent shot. So he put me on jail. He gave me some Teen Titans to do. And I did like 4 Teen Titans. But there were so many books and so many artists that I couldn't be made a regular artist on the book. I would use this sort of, because I was fast, I was used to help books get on their schedules again. So, and you started feeling like the cleanup guy. I got tired of being the cleanup guy. I was given Vigilante by Marv, but I wasn't given the book as my own. I had to share it with 3 other artists. That got tiring. I did a book for Marvel where I thought, okay, this will all be good. They had offered me to try out on Hulk, but they wanted to draw like Todd McFarlane, and I wasn't happy about that. So I didn't take it. But then Mark Gruenwald, who was a famous editor, really sweet man, put me on some things and pushed me in front, as well as Jim Shooter opened the door for me. And I got a couple of assignments, but it wasn't like a regular job. I wasn't getting regular stuff. So financially, it wasn't working out. And creatively, it certainly wasn't working out. And I was not a fan of American animation. My love for animation ended after the 60s. You know, I love the Hanna-Barbera. I mean, Johnny Quest, Space Ghost, Shazam, you know, Hercules. Those are my jam. I love those. No one was doing those, not like that. And when they were doing them, they were softening them up. American animation was soft. And I was looking at anime and loving anime and go, why can't we do edgier stuff like that? And we weren't doing it. Comics wasn't even getting that edgy. It was slowly getting edgy, actually. You're
Mm-hmm.
doing edgier stuff. And that was the thing. I was biting at the lip to do. I wanted to get away from kiddie things
Yeah.
in comics. And I certainly didn't want to get into kiddie things in animation, which was ironic because when I got in animation, I got to do some kiddie things. But
Mm-hmm.
it also taught me to really grow as an artist. It taught me, again, observation.
Yeah.
So what happened was I went from comics to animation because of the money.
Mm-hmm.
I asked by a buddy to take his place. He jumped from one studio to another. Actually, I got him into comics. Then he moved out here after I moved here. He went immediately into animation because, as we found, animation paid steadier, larger,
Mm-hmm.
more long term.
Mm-hmm.
And, all you ask to do is put in 9 to 5 instead of 20, 15 hour, 15 to 20 hour days on comics.
Right.
It wasn't good to be fast and be always given deadlines of 2 weeks, turning into a month. It was not fun. It was, burnout. I can take time and make the time my own, but it was all around worrying about, okay, if I don't work now, I'm not going to make money for this. And
Right.
it was less for me feeling creative. I was not feeling creative, no input at all. Just give me a script, I'll draw it. And especially after the Marvel job, they gave me a Daredevil versus Black Panther, which I thought was going to be, I love, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they had promised I was going to get this great inker who was an old school artist who I loved, who had done the book previously. So I kind of believed him. Oh shit, he's going to do it. Oh, I'm so excited. And then found out, no, I didn't get the inker. The writer rewrote everything that I drew.
Mm-hmm.
She gave me an outline and then rewrote everything contrary to what she gave me. And I wasn't allowed to do any fixes. And the inker overdrew stuff that just looked awful. And I really, and that's why I got tired of being powerless.
Yeah.
To making the shots. And I remember talking to Dick about learning to write and become a writer. And he felt like, and again, the one thing I loved about him was he was honest. He goes, you have not learned. It's not that I don't think you have it in you. You haven't, how do you put it? You haven't the self-confidence to push it. You're saying you want to do it, but you're not showing me you're doing it. And I had a hard time with that at the time. And I was sitting there, is it racial? And he goes, no, Dick pushed me in ways that race never came into it. I had to look at it and go, I didn't have the experience, or I wasn't using the experience correctly.
Right.
Because I was working with guys. Len Wein taught me how to dissect a story. Marv taught me how to interpret a story and edit. So I had it, but I never put it into motion. I didn't do it for myself.
Right.
And so I was stuck. Instead of I'm going to go out and do it, I was actually like froze. And so when his friend took this other job, he goes, dude, do me a favor, because you can use a job. I'm going to recommend you. It was to make him look good, but it also was a kick in the ass I needed. I had broke up with the person I was with, or was about to break up with her. So love was not going to keep me here. So, and I kept threatening going back to New York, but by that time, DC was slowly moving out here. So back to New York for what? And so when he's like animation, I'm like, oh man, that's like surrendering. And I remember taking the job, and I can't remember the job now. Oh, it was a Marvel job. I think it was Defenders of the Earth. No, it was. Yeah, it was Defenders of the Earth, which was almost like, okay, superhero still, but it's animation. And I went in as a layout artist. I had to draw buildings, which was boring. But then I got that first check and went, you're paying me this to draw a building? Yeah, fine. Okay. So I did. Got to meet an amazing group of artists. That was what opened my eyes up. The people I got to work with were all these guys, from older guys I knew of, from younger guys who were 3 times better than anybody ever seen, guys coming out of CalArts, guy who worked in filmation, all these different personalities, a lot of ex-comic book guys who are also still doing comics too. And it was like a wake-up call of going, you can do a lot and not just be one-sided, be multi-talented.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I did props. I was proud to do them because when I saw the paycheck and realized I'm making more with this paycheck this week than I made all last month.
Right.
Yeah, I can take a break from comics for a while, And it wasn't even a break. I had no idea. Was disenchanted anyway.
Yeah.
And this was not seeing where I can go. And when I talked to independents, I wasn't giving, the nibbles that, no one was like going, yeah, come here and draw this book. I just wasn't getting it. And so in my head, as most artists do, you think, okay, I'm not good enough. But here was animation was going, hey, you can draw a pencil? You're in the union now, And it was like, you're a union? So that opened the door for me in animation. I basically came up. And even when I got the Dennis the Menace show, I remember saying, I don't draw Dennis the Menace, and I respected Dennis the Menace. I love the lines of it. I just wasn't my style, Bigfoot drawing. I looked at it like it wasn't quite Bigfoot, it was different. But they're like, yeah, but we still need a house, we still need a car, we still need props. And so I did that. I even worked on Hello Kitty. So I remember doing Hello Kitty, and it taught me a lot of, okay, I see how when I saw the layouts come back from overseas and the stuff we had to do, it was really an eye-opener. It helped me understand perspective where I wasn't in comics. I was faking a lot. And in animation was, okay, you got time to figure this shit out. You got time. We got books. Oh, I didn't think about this. I was so self-taught. The job was teaching me what I never learned.
Right.
And I'm really grateful for that. So those days when I go, yeah, I worked on those things. I used to, on one hand, there was a part of me was like, I didn't like it. And the other hand was like, you wouldn't have grown if you hadn't have worked there.
Right.
So
when you directed, the Ninja Turtles animated series, and you wanted to bring back the comic book feel, what is your definition of comic book feel, and how did you translate that onto the screen?
Okay. That was, I want to say, easier because it was basically just looking at the source material and bringing that edginess to it. But I knew that we couldn't make the look at the time to just, there was two words of thought. To make it look like the comic book meant really making it look cruder than I thought it deserved. I thought the comic book, as much as it was very popular, the comic book look was very crude, not well drawn. And as much as they were going on about it at that time, drawing, I mean, now we can. Even the Ninja Turtles I'm seeing now has done a version of the comic book where it's like, okay, it's a little more graphic, you can do that. But then that look wouldn't go over well. So I had to find something that would work and still paid attention to what the comic was doing, which was edgier, darker look, graphic, and something that we can work in animation. Because, and one of the things that I always tell guys coming to animation, we're so line oriented, and in animation, it's less line oriented and more shape.
Okay.
You getting in here and doing all this detail doesn't mean a damn thing when it's the shape that's got to move. And that's something I learned myself, so I could translate to them. All right, get away from that and do this instead. So that was one of the big things, was that, okay, we looked at comic, and now how can we adapt that edginess to the form that we wanted to go in? So it's sort of evolved. It's like an evolved comic, a comic that moved. When I looked at the Turtles done before, they made them lumpy, and I'm like, oh, I want them to feel muscular. They're mutants. They're heroes, but they're tough. So in the comic, there was always going back and forth about the face. And the live action movie had come out at the time, and I really loved how they interpreted it. I always thought, okay, that's definitely looking at comics, is definitely looking at the Turtle comic and bringing it together. So, don't reinvent the wheel, just follow the program. Let's follow the formula they did. So that's why I always had that same feeling of it. As well as, again, still paid attention to the comics. I didn't want to do the corny, they had little belts with their initials on it. To me, that's not what the comic was. The comics they were really key belts, karate belts or belts. And also I wanted them to feel worn. The pads on the arm felt like something made sense, that they were elbow strike. And that was the other thing too. The old Ninja Turtles couldn't hit things. They had to hit things. They couldn't hit people. We were doing hitting people. We're looking at Shaw Brothers, Hong Kong stuff, and saying, okay, give me that kind of action. We don't have to show blood and cutting, but or cutting through flesh, but you can punch and you can kick and we can cut through things. And let's make it cool. So again, that was from the comic that we're translating into in animation. So that was a lot of that, and that became easier and easier as everybody got comfortable. Once that initial look, and everyone's like, yeah, we can see this now. And I was very proud of that.
So, how hard is it to become a director when you start off as an artist, like going from drawing being your main purpose to having a hands off and drawing and like directing other people's drawings?
It really comes down. It's again, it's funny. Dick has always taught me by pointing out my adversity. When he said that I couldn't write because I wasn't showing. I wasn't showing it. I wasn't using my mouth. I wasn't using myself. I wasn't illustrating. I wasn't leading. That meant I had to learn that. And we had talked about off camera about how you become yourself. And I remember the switch when I went from being an artist to a director. I went from artist to art director, and then eventually a director. It's because the more I became and got this knowledge and had to translate it to other people and talk to them and give them a vision, that means I had to feel the vision myself and have to tell them. And whenever you cut out all the BS, that's really what a director does. You're telling people your vision and guiding them to what it's supposed to be. Even if you're doing it to yourself, you're doing the same thing. But the director has to be able to take it to everybody. You know, he has to see the big picture at the end of the whole thing before it's happening. But he's got to bring everybody along so that picture comes together. And so as an art director, I was me telling overseas what we're looking for, what I'm looking for. Sometimes they would show me something and I go, I didn't think of that. Now I'm going to use that. Or sometimes I bring them something going, oh, we didn't know we can do that. And then instead of looking at that as, they were all lessons for me. And each show taught me something that made it my repertoire. I became that was the thing that Dick was trying to tell me. If I was going to write, I should have started writing and just took my lumps. I was too busy wanting that. Put me in the writing spot. And he goes, no, you got to earn that. That's what Dick was saying. And that's what I did as a director. Each job I got taught me something that I needed to learn and also helped me build up the things I didn't know.
Right.
And when I was wrong, that was a lesson. It was never a failure of, oh, I'll never do that again. In comics, it felt like a failure. And animation was, next time, I'll get it right. Next time, we'll do it this way. There was other people involved that sometimes they wouldn't allow me to fall. You know, even when we put on shows on the air that weren't good, we learned never to do that again. You know, and I don't know how many times that's happened. Even recently, things will happen. You go, okay, we're not going to do that again. You know, or we're going to use an old trick I did here, and then found out, oh shit, the old trick worked. That's good stuff. That's experience. So I tell people, I have a lot of young artists who ask me, how do you become a director? I goes, learn how to tell a story. I mean, tell the story. Not just tell the story, be willing to put it out there and tell you without either using your words or use your words, but learn to communicate. Yeah. Learn to express what you're talking about into a picture that everybody's going to go, yeah, I see. Now you're not just given a director's job. You got to earn it. Yeah. You practice it. Did that help answer your question? I don't know if I went too esoteric for you.
No, it answered the question. So you're now supervising director of the Boondocks. So how's it felt throughout your career, the times you've gotten to work on projects that include people that look like you?
Well, you know, here's the funny part. I always try to put in people who look like me. This is no big revelation. I want to say, I'm proud of being part of Boondocks because it is an incredible show. It's an important show and doing important stuff. There are a lot of things about it that also is, for me, is honestly another day at the job. In other words, this isn't that special. The special part is bringing all this vision together with people. That's exciting to me. There's Black people. Hell, we could be Martians and I would still feel that same respect for it. That's, again, to me, which makes it, as a director, we should be able to take any material. I don't want to be known. I mean, that was another thing I was trying to point out and I got lost in my telling the story. When I became a professional artist, and I don't know if I was inspired by some, I want to say I was, but we might be running out of time, but I can say it was a lot of people who made it important to me that I become a good artist not just a Black artist,
Mm-hmm.
not just, an artist who specialized at this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist who can do other things.
Right.
And I may have strengthened myself as an action adventure guy and done comics, that kind of vein, but I also went out of my way to learn the other stuff because that was just as important to me. Each fed the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't be just a Bigfoot comedy guy if I can't understand drama.
Right.
And that opened me up even with music. We were talking about how music was. Although a lot of times when I would sit there and go, we need to take it from here, or even how do I understand this unless I'm willing to listen to classical music or listen to Zydeco or listen to you name it. It made me go out and experience different things so that I wouldn't just be a one-note character or one kind of person. So I've made my point, even what I've done, to not be just a Black director.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be a good director who happens to be Black.
Right.
That. And that's how I try to do everything and still do. So that even when I'm working on a show, now this is where I will do this. I'll be on the show, and depending on where it is, I try to put us in the front line no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Even on JLA, when I knew 90% of the heroes are all white and we have one Black character, I snuck us in another brother. Now, he happened to look like me, but I put him in there because I wanted somebody in there, and Jerry loved it, and he went with it, and that's why I always have his respect, because he said, you put in a guy who we can identify with. We have these archetype characters. We know Superman's white, we know Batman's white, we know Wonder Woman's white. We got Vixen, who's Black. We have Vibe, who I made Latino because I have people go, why are you making Black? And he goes, well, because I was surrounded by a lot of young Latino kids who were doing breakdancing who I saw did not have representation.
Right.
We had a lot of Black guys. It's almost like I didn't want to do what was expected of me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to go in there and make a Black hero. No, I went in there and made a Latino character because I understood where he was coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why Vibe was Latino. Now, again, just when everyone's like, well, shit, what's he? Okay, he's doing this, he's doing that. Then I snuck the brother in because he should have been there all along. That was my idea. He would have been there all along. He could have been this guy, he could have been that guy. Instead of making the redhead guy, I made him the Black guy.
Yeah.
I made the sister. When I did Dead Space, the main character, there was no color on her, really.
Yeah.
And I wanted her to be a woman of color. I never told you what she was. Mm-hmm. Even the lady who did her voice is someone of multiracial, and I love that. But I definitely did not want to make her blonde. She was not Ripley. She was, to me, this multiracial woman of the future who we knew just didn't take shit.
Right.
And I was proud of that because to this day, no one's asked, we know she's a lady of color. We just don't know what color. Doesn't matter. It's the future.
Right.
So I'm proud. To me, I have a mandate. I'm always going to integrate. I'm always going to make it colorful.
So can you explain how the spook who sat by the door and your father's advice about navigating white spaces governed a different way for you to exist as a Black person that is not necessarily the most revolutionary, but you're still doing your part? You kind of went into it a little bit, but. Yeah.
That, in fact, that's why I held off. I'm glad you asked that question because that book has been very significant for me. Mm-hmm. It came out in the 60s. It came out in 68. And I was starting to read novels then. And we weren't in those novels. Mm-hmm. We weren't in those novels. And then I read an excerpt of the novel, and it got me because it was about a brother who became a CIA agent, and he's subversive. And we don't know which side he's going to jump on. You realize, well, he's on his side, but he's playing everybody against him. And the name, the spook who sat by the door, just got me. Mm-hmm. So I would hear my dad come in at night from his job, where he was the only Black guy on his job, and how he had to navigate all these different racial differences. There was Italians and Polish and Yugoslavian and Ukrainian guys, and he was the kind of linchpin with them because they can always trust him. And he always, he was a big guy. He was dark as hell. He was beautiful. I used to call him a beautiful brute, my dad. He was just this wonderful guy. Everybody loved him. And I remember asking him, don't you feel scared? Mm-hmm. I don't give them a reason to feel scared. I give them a reason to feel safe, that they can trust me. Mm-hmm. Not step and fetch and stay safe, but safe that I'm the guy you can count on. and why in some ways he was a foreman without being made a foreman, which pissed me off as I got older, but I realized he was all right with that. He got paid enough. He did his job. He was given authority, because it wasn't a given authority. It's like he made authority because he knew how to do it. He navigated. And when I read The Spook by the Door, that was the plan the brother did. He went in and been very, he knew he was better than everybody, but he played it just enough so that he always skated by. And one guy calls him on it, going, "You could have aced that, but we purposely saw you step back because you knew if you did, you'd be in the spotlight. And you always be the side of the spotlight." That was like listening to my story. Hearing this guy was telling me, "You go out there in the world, son. Now, you aren't strong in your mind to be under the spotlight, but be outside the spotlight. You can get as much done. Probably get more done because nobody's paying attention to you."
Right.
That you sneak more brothers in. This book was a primer to me. And then when I got into college, I had a poli-sci class where they brought in the author. And Sam Greenlee was an amazing, intense, smaller stature man, but intense. And talking about this book. Now, by that time, I'd seen the movie, which I loved, and knew the history of the movie. He was telling us more of the history of the movie because we didn't have IMDb then. So, unless you saw it in Ebony magazine or Jet magazine or shit, you didn't know all this other stuff he was telling us. And also the reality of here he wrote this amazing book, and he didn't write that many, but it was enough to keep him going. He was getting attention, but he wasn't moving on. This wasn't like James Bond. He was going to make a series either. This was an intense story. If you ever read the story, in the end, he does cause this revolution. And now we're like, okay, what's going to happen? And he leaves it at that. So it was a great pivotal novel. But I just thought it was unfortunate in my mind that he didn't go further, because he did something I didn't see anybody else do at the time. He wrote this incredible fiction novel. That was the other thing. This is a brother writing fiction. Many brothers write fiction. Brothers wrote history stories. Brothers wrote research. They did journalism. But did they write fiction?
Right.
Well, they did. But I didn't know. But he opened the door for me to learn. And so The Spooky Came by the Door became like a mantra for me. Of whenever I get
not to be all rah, rah, rah when you get somewhere, but let me do this and let me do that.
And sometimes you change the rules. There's times when I've had to be the rah, rah, rah guy, which I wanted to be the rah, rah, rah guy. You learn the landscape where you can work it in. I didn't like that. There are times when I know people, I talk to other guys and they're like, "I don't want to do that. I want to do this." But I'm going, yeah, but all that noise you made. Here's that thing again. The other thing I've learned, it's your deeds, not words. What you do, not what you say. A lot of guys like to say a lot. They're good at saying shit over and over again. Talking shit, getting through the door shit. I can name names. I won't. But I won't, because it's not productive for us. But you've probably ran in. I know you would. You will, and you will more, and just as I always do. But I'm always interested in the guy and how they get it done.
Yeah.
And the guys who get it done don't necessarily have to be out in the spotlight.
Right.
So that was for me, that was my life lesson on, all right, Chuck, the introverted artist, needed to become Chuck, the director, a different guy who learned how to do things based on what his dad, who only had a 3rd grade education, but had a great sense of people, that taught me about looking at people and reading them. And don't let the situation get controlled, no matter how bad the environment was. What can you bring to make that environment better?
Right.
And that's what I've tried to do in my career, is when I take over a show or get brought into a show. Even when you say Brave and the Bold, I enjoyed working on that show. It was tough because I was just being a board artist. I had already been a showrunner and director, and it was a time period where once I had lost a couple of jobs, I couldn't get those again. X amount of reasons. So I had to go work on some of those. Some of them have less, even the Martin thing, I was brought in after the fact because the art director they had was not that experienced. And he basically made the show I thought very generic and dull, and it was overwritten, it was so soft, pablum, tasteless. And I hate it. I needed the job. So I took it. But when Spawn came, and here's that thing where here's this heinous kind of dark show that I had this incredible creative connection with and partnership. The director who brought me on to work with him has always been and still a good friend of mine, great friend, and a good teacher, and helped me become more me. And encouraged me in a lot of ways that, here was Martin, which a show where I should have felt pride in, where I felt like this is a horrible way to treat this wonderful statement. And then we get Spawn where we got to go out there and be creative.
Right.
Fun shit. Oh yeah, it was dark murder, but it was fun. And so, that was like, all right, okay, that gave me more voice. That taught me more. Where Martin, I was just asked to come in, clean up somebody's mess. I wouldn't say I was a janitor, but it felt like that. So that's why when I was beaten in the Emmys, I was very proud. It was like the universe can be just.
Yeah. Speaking of Martin, that's what I learned from watching the movie Selma, was that not everybody has to be Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. Like, you had the lady who had them over for dinner and she made food for them. Yeah. You had the guy who made him laugh. Like, not everybody has to be the forefront. There are different roles in the movement that you can fill. But Martin Luther King and Malcolm X get put in the forefront, but they need to eat. So
we forget about the people, we forget about the people who made them. It's not about made them, who kept them and kept them going.
Or give him a place to stay. I mean, he wasn't always staying in hotels.
Huge. We were talking about Lovecraft Country the other day, and how significant that was. And I'm a big fan of the book. I read the book before. What got me about the book, more so than, one, it really talked about what the Green Book was about. I've seen the book. My parents have one. So it was like, and in hearing the old folks talk about it, you realize how this is probably as significant as hearing on the plantation about the Underground Railroad. When you hear about how you knew you can go to this house and be fed, and you can go over here to be there, and don't go here, go here. You want a haircut? Go here. And this stuff again that I asked my dad, is this true? And he was like, yeah. Pop would say, this is how it worked. And we took it as, and when I remember telling my white friends later, and their minds were blown, like, wait a minute, you guys had to have a book to tell you this? Like, you had to make, it goes, yeah, we had to make a book. It's no different. Put it this way. You guys have a map to tell you where a rest stop is and where food is. Why can't we have one? We're going through darker territory. And that was the first time I used that word. We're going through darker territory. We're going through more heinous territory. So those of us who got out of it, left the map for the ones behind us where to go. And that's
the history of even taking fried chicken on the trips, because fried chicken lasted. It's method to the madness.
Right. This is how we navigate. This is how we got through. So watching Lovecraft Country and seeing all that authenticity put out there. And the big charge for me, being a guy of genre, we did it in genre. Oh, we can be in adventure stories. Oh, we can be wizards. Oh, this is great. The women can kick ass. She's loved it. Oh, she was wonderful. And it's different from the book, but it doesn't matter. And the bigger irony of it was written by a white guy. But that's besides the point. He learned, as my dad said, he learned a lesson. He listened. And that's the prime, to me, that's the prime. If we have a prime directive as artists, is that we must be really hell of observers.
Yeah.
And again, the people who kept Martin and Malcolm and everybody else who marched and anybody else whoever protested, that's the army. That's more in the army.
That's important too.
That's very important. Very important. That means nothing. I'm joked about on the last couple of shows because my name is Patton. They call me, my nickname is the General, because obvious reasons. But obvious reasons was like, look, the reason I've been able to run these shows is that I understand leadership. I understand how to put together a team and let a team work. You can't be named Patton and not expect to lead. And I've been saying that. Now, the other twisted part of my life is, like I told you, I have two families. My Patton was not exactly, that wasn't my real father's name. His last name was Washington. So I'm screwed either way. So you can't be named Washington if you don't know how to lead. That's it. Let's get the hell out of the way. So but that's lessons we learn,
Right.
I also, and why I'm saying all that is because, as I tell everybody, the team has to feel able to operate. I need to put people together that in case something happens to me, they keep it going. In every group I've ever worked with, I've said to them, I don't want lame ducks. I want you able to take the responsibility. You should be wanting my job. Or if not wanting my job, wanting to do this job so that, you see your part in this.
Right.
And my job is to get you where you can do that. And that to me is how it works. And I think that's the way how our forefathers went through this shit, was that those people who opened their homes, who, hid people, who put gas in the cars, air in their tires, made room. And all you have to do is talk to anybody who ever lived to that point. That was important shit.
Yeah.
So
a couple more questions.
That's trippy. So anyway.
A couple more questions. Sure. So as a comic book and animation person, what did you think of Into the Spider-Verse?
I thought it was magnificent. As a comic book person, it was great to see it happen. Animator, it made both the comic book guy and the animator in me both jealous and ecstatic, because it's been like the holy grail for years to do an animated series that really showed the strength of what comics was about. Not just on the underneath the surface, but the surface. When they had that scene where the Band-Aid dots were flying, I was like, yeah, because that has been the foundation of comic book look. There's the Band-Aid dots and the color and the looking of it. And now every damn show I've worked on has looked at Spideyverse, go, okay, what's going on here? And I wish to God we had this technology when we were doing Spawn. Because when we were doing Spawn, we were trying to do that.
Yeah.
On the cups of doing a Spawn movie. Where our biggest problem was they wanted Spawn to be toon shaded, and toon shading wasn't that strong then.
Okay.
And the look of it wasn't there. I wanted what we saw in Spider-Verse was what I wanted, but I didn't know how to articulate it.
Right.
We didn't have technology. So watching that fills my eyes up with, the envy is less as much as the pride.
Yeah.
The other side of it is Miles is such a wonderful character. It's so cool to see a brother out there. This is about Miles. And I love that Peter comes in as the old dude. It's cool. We all have our stories. I look at him, it's like, that's like Giordano dragging me out of that room. It's like Lynn taking me under his wing. It's the old dude going, hey, come here, kid. I'm going to show you something. But it's your show. This is your show. You have to pick the role. So watching him become Spider-Man was beautiful. I don't want to say I teared up, but yeah.
But in this day and age where, it was beautiful visually, but then the writing was good too.
That's the other. Yeah, you hit on a very important thing that most people don't know. Just because we're artists, we keep forgetting. We think visual, but the writing, if it isn't there, you got nothing. It's like the body without the bones. I had to work with someone recently where I had to show him. He wrote this thing and goes, "Here's your problem. You have no foundation. You got no structure. Why do I care about this character?" Well, no. You should be showing us why we care about this character. That's part of what the writing is supposed to do. We can't draw that. We can, but then we have to be the writers. So whatever he says out of his mouth has to be as significant as what you see.
Right.
And don't just have him talk for frickin' ever. And what I loved about Spider-Verse was that everybody was on point. Everything being said was so important. It was so cool. How his father related with his father. The only thing that kind of, I don't want to say bad because you can't make it perfect, we didn't get enough of his mom. I'm hoping when they do a sequel that his mom's influence will come in.
Yeah.
Because as I say, there's not a day. Sorry?
The Hispanic piece.
Yes, but just the fact it's his mother. I mean, we know about his uncle. His uncle was obviously very powerful in his life. That's how he became this vigilante in a way. And his father because of being a cop, and his mother's influence. And I know for me, I would not be sitting here right now if my mom didn't sit me on her lap and read me comic books and told me it's okay.
Yeah.
I would not be the man I am today without her, and the artist I am today without her. And she unfortunately never got to see me get there. But I'm always reminded when I do something that makes me tickle visually, I know it's her going, hey, I saw that, and I want to see that in Spider-Verse. I want to see what that is, if there is one at all.
Yeah. So what do you hope Black artists and animation professionals do in this current landscape of access to technology and resources that you wish you could have done when you were younger?
I am blown away by, there are so many young brothers and sisters out there right now. So fucking talented. Not just talented, so fucking talented, that all they need to do for me is keep doing what they do, unite together and do it. I'm amazed at the indie influence. I see a lot of guys who are not doing the regular books. Sure, it'd be great if you were working under big companies. There is a curse in working with the big companies. That'll be a whole nother conversation. But when I see them doing their own thing and promoting themselves and getting it out there, that's important. Now they just have to learn to get it out there so it benefits them. So when I saw what happened to the young guy who did Hair Love, that was beautiful. When I see going on with different people, the creator of Usagi Yojimbo, Stan, oh God, I can't remember Stan's last name. That character has been around for years. And I was actually, when we did Turtles, we actually put Usagi Yojimbo, Stan Sakai. Stan was one of the quietest, nicest gentlemen I've ever seen, quiet artist. And that character was beautiful. And I thought, why are we animating this? And could not get people interested to animate. Even on Turtles, we got him as a guest star. But I was trying to talk to studio, let's do a series on him. Spin this off. Samurai, Rabbit, this is great books. No one's listening to me. Well, it's now being made into a series, which is good. And it's great to see that. I want to see more people's independent things being brought out. That's what I love Stan, because although he's not Black, he's still a person of color. He's still someone who isn't white, but he's got this beautiful character that is now going to make, noise. It's going to come out and people are going to see it. I want to see more of us do that. It's great for me to see Black Lightning as a TV series. And it's Afro. To me, it's a lot more fun than Luke Cage was. He started strong, but Black Lightning has stayed steady. The whole world, it's like, oh, this is the cadence and the music is out for a network show. Beautiful. Let's see more of that. I am excited about the amount of talent that are not letting conventionality hold them back. Sure, it's great to work for the big companies, and it's great when you get in there because you get your name. I myself have done the same. But what I wish I had done that I see them doing is promote their own stuff. A lot more promoting. And I'm seeing it happen. And in some cases, I'm grateful enough to have either advised or spoke to them at one time or another. So I feel like I've put in I'm helping them out. But there are times when I wish, God, I should be doing that. And I know I should be doing that. And that's another conversation.
So my last question, if there was a documentary about your life, what would you include other than your comic book and animation career?
Movies. I love movies. We haven't talked about my love of movies, which is ironic because it's like I have a friend who goes, well, dude, you don't go to the movies? He goes, no, you don't understand. I watch so much movies from television, which to me was my first theater. Because it was just me and the TV set. Sure, you had commercials and crap, but I would not have gotten to see a lot of great films if I didn't have that little device in front of me to show me. So when I finally did get to see them in the big screen and really got to experience it, that opened the door for me to see a lot more than just what I was experiencing. I got to see foreign films. I got to see interesting foreign films I would have never had in my life. It had nothing to do with dragons or nothing to do with killing or anything, but just visual. That visual encyclopedia again. And so film, even now when I go online, I'm looking for films I either have not seen in a long time or those I've never seen and experience. Or I have these little mini film festivals that I go through. The other night I had one of, I decided to do an Alain Delon film festival because I had something taped off TMC and I also found some other things. And it was cool because it's really cool to watch just what makes a French film interesting? What makes a German film interesting? Even that, okay, and that opens the door to us. What do we have out there that we haven't seen that we need to look at?
Yeah.
Black films, African films. Just open the door. Asian films. So film has been as much a part of my life as comics. And also, to me, there are times I sit there and go, how did I get in animation? Film. Really. I mean, I really shouldn't be in this. I'm grateful. I can't tell you how grateful I am. I'm grateful for the little goofy statue. I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for the next show I'm on, or the one I just left, or the one before that. I'm grateful for all of that, but I wouldn't have walked to the door if it weren't for film.
Yeah.
That's what made me and that's what made me a storyteller. That's why I tell people, when it comes down to it, I'm not an animator. I'm not a filmmaker, but I am a storyteller. I own that. So,
anything else in your documentary?
Nothing I can't talk about unless we had lots of drinks. So, I'll leave it at that.
So where can,
good. This is for the family, so this is good.
So where can people find your website and follow you on social media?
I am on Facebook. Facebook, as much as everybody bitches about it, I wouldn't have found so many wonderful people. Dan included. We talk occasionally on Facebook. One of the great people I know, great artists in our time to know. Facebook, you find me under my name, Chuck Patton. I also have a Facebook artist page that I call is Patton Art. I was gonna wear that hat, and I thought, nah, Detroit today. So, my web page is called Chuck Patton Art, and it has a lot of old stuff, sketches. Occasionally, I do commissions. I haven't done it in a while because this last year has been very busy animation wise.
Yeah.
In Boondocks, but there is a property that I was helping develop that's now being animated that I can't speak about, but it looks really fun. There was also another show that I was helping that's coming out soon. I didn't have a lot of help on it, but I did my part, called Invincible. Kulapari is still on Netflix. My version, I did the first season of Kulapari. I was the storyboard supervisor, but I was practically co-directing it, And so I took over the full directing on the second season, which is called Dreamwalker.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to go another season for X amount of reasons, but it's gotten a lot of good reviews. So I'm very proud of that. The rest of the stuff you see me in reruns. So that's where you'll find me. Oh, I also have an Instagram page. The Instagram page is Chuck Patton Art.
Okay.
And I'm on Twitter too as Chuck Patton Art.
So thank you, Chuck, for coming on the BlkWmnAnimator YouTube channel. Thank you for representing for Detroit.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I hope I made this interesting and entertaining. That's all I can say. I hope
you did.
Thank you for having me on, and I'm very proud to be with you. I hope I hope to see you more out there. I hope this has been inspiring to you as well to others, and keep doing it. Don't stop. Do your thing, young lady.
I will. And to everyone out there, I want you to like So I Know It's Real, comment and tell me how you feel, subscribe to Seal the Deal, and sign up for post notifications to show your zeal. And I'll see you in the next video.
Awesome. Peace. Oops, there I go. Peace.